how do you live up to presenting and giving you guys something of value. I'm here to talk about the future of work. What is the future of work? Do we enjoy coming to work? How many of you enjoy coming to work? Oh, wow. Okay. I have some news for you. Let me first start with, how many of you have heard about ChatGPT? ChatGPT, but how many of you have heard it? You have 2, 3, 4 of you. Yeah? Now, what is ChatGPT? ChatGPT is Google on steroids. It's something like Google on steroids. So as I was preparing today, I said, let me take ChatGPT's help for today's speech. First I went and asked them, can you give me the speech I should give today about future of work? It gave me my entire transcript. I said, but people will be bored. So I said, let me do something even more simple. Let me ask them a simple thing to start with. Say, I'm always not a great starter like Jana Stanfield or Scott Friedman. Can you give me a small joke on the future of work which will get the audience excited and to pay attention to what I've got to say? Guess what it gave me? Why did the robots go on strike? Why did they go on strike? Because it wanted better working conditions and fair wage. But then it realized it could just program itself to do that. And what ChatGPT has done is, it has made information, insight so accessible that any human being on the planet with the least amount of knowledge or intelligence can now solve the most complicated tasks in the world. A very simple farmer in rural part of India who has never spoken English was able to use ChatGPT to access a very complex government portal on the benefits that are available to him and use it by just having a conversation with ChatGPT. So you can imagine the power and potential of this technology and what it is going to do to companies, what it is going to do to jobs. If it can write my speech for tomorrow, why will you come and even listen to me tomorrow? Now, this is the real business environment that companies are facing. You look at the world environment, we thought COVID was a challenge. Then came the Ukraine war. Then came supply chain constraints. We were all talking about the great resignation last year. Guess what companies decided? They talked about employee experience, but then they all moved on. Now we have great layoffs. Every day, 2,000 jobs are being lost by one of the biggest tech companies in the world. We talk about employee experience, but at the same time, companies are prioritizing shareholders first before employees. And at the same time, we have, the risk of automation running risk to a variety of jobs. So I'm hoping that we can answer these questions over the course of next 30 odd minutes. But before I get started, I think it's first important to answer the question that we started with. So all of you said, I'm so excited to come to work today. So what is the definition of work? Where was the word work originated? Does anybody have any idea? How did the word work originate? Back in the days, work meant torture, to inflict suffering. Yeah? So how many of you raised your hands earlier? You're coming because you enjoy torture. In German, it was hardship. In Latin, it was accomplished with hardship. That's how the origins of the word originated. It has since evolved, But most people in this world are not as excited as you and I to come to work. Initially, when we brought in people to do work, it was mostly to do with labor. As we moved into the Industrial Revolution, then it moved into building certain competencies, working in factories. And the schools of yesterday prepared us so that we could go and work in these factories and get jobs accomplished. They trained us to be accountants and lawyers and doctors and technicians who could do things on a scale around the world. Now we are moving into the knowledge economy, where the biggest jobs, and I think Richard talked about saying, hey, will Philippines become a developed nation? What is that GDP per capita that we need to achieve? If we have to achieve that, the only way possible is to contribute and participate more aggressively in the knowledge economy. So how do we succeed in this future of work? And this is the outline that I want to share with you. There are three things I want to talk about. I want to talk about first, future of work is only possible if we address the customer issues. Can we solve the customer challenges? And what are some of the world's best companies? Where can we draw inspiration from in terms of how do we address what the customer needs? Once we understand the customer, then we say, hey, how do we organize ourselves as companies to solve those customer needs? And then third, what role you and I have to play? What is the opportunity for us to become better leaders so that we can, make this ecosystem work together? So let's start with the customer and what the customer needs are. Over the last 3 or 4 decades, as companies, we have done amazingly well in terms of bringing down the cost of making products and services. So you all have now access to some of the world's most fascinating information by signing up with Globe Telecom or Smart PLDT. And how much do you pay a month? Maybe couple of hundred pesos. And the price of mobile phone services have kept on declining very, very rapidly. You don't need to go to a bank anymore. The bank comes to you. It is there in your smartphone. The differentiation between products and services is so limited, so little today. You take away the brand and the color of the company, it's hard to say whose company service are you actually using. So what has happened is companies have done amazingly well in taking away friction in dealing with them. In most instances, you don't have to queue up in the bank for hours to send money overseas or receive money from somebody in overseas. They have reduced the cost of services. Everybody has a mobile phone today. You can get a reasonably good phone for $100 US. The first phones were introduced for about $2,000 US. So the economic values, companies who competed on making things cheaper did well in the last 3 decades. But that's not enough as you look into the future. As you look into the future, we've got to win based on psychological value, based on emotional value. Coke doesn't sell you sugar water. Coke sells you a lifestyle. You connect with the brand, and that is where they create value. So how are some of the world's best companies pushing this envelope of connecting on emotion and empathy? Let me tell you a few stories and why it is essential. Right? It is essential because we are now moving from a commodity-based economy to a goods-based economy, from a service-based economy to what I call as an experience-based economy. So when we started businesses many, many years ago, it was all about extracting commodities, mining, etc. These were the big industries. Then you made goods. We made mobile phones and televisions, and we manufactured them at scale, and companies like Sony and Panasonic and General Motors and Ford Motor Company went on to become successful because they made great goods at competitive prices. Then came the services economy. Companies like Marriott and others have done extremely well in the services economy, but very little to differentiate today. The future is about staging experiences. To give you that in context, when I grew up, let's say, how did my mother celebrate my birthday? And I still remember some of the fondest memories growing up, as a 7, 8-year-old. The fondest memories was my mother going and baking a cake. What would she do? She would go to the shop, she would buy the eggs, she would buy the flour, come home, bake a cake, and at 5 in the evening, invite all my friends over, we would gather around, we would celebrate, and that was the most beautiful thing you could do. Okay? I think we all have done that. As the economies progressed, that we all started making a little bit more money. The mothers didn't need to go all the way through all that labor to make that cake. Instead, we started buying these premix cakes. Right? You get the premix, you make the cake in an instant, and the celebration evolved. And then along with it, you had fries and other things come along. How do mothers of today celebrate birthdays? We go to McDonald's. There is a party. McDonald's gives the cake for free pretty much. Right? You pay for the experience. It's no longer about the cake. So if you are as a business, where are you participating? Are you participating in selling the eggs and the flour to make the cake? Are you participating in the premix? Or are you participating in the experience economy where the most value is created? If we do not migrate, then we will end up at the bottom of the food chain, because the differentiation and premium to companies is only available if you are creating and curating experiences. I hope you get that. Now let's talk about what is the pinnacle of experiences. What are some of the world's best companies? Because you want to look into the future. You want to learn from the best in the future. What are some of the world's best companies doing in terms of creating experiences? So as I started studying, I said, hey, I chanced upon this incredibly powerful speech and book written by a person by the name Bill Guidara. Now, he's the founder and owner of a restaurant called 11 Madison Square. 11 Madison Square, as the name suggests, it's in New York. It's a fancy restaurant. I think my friend has eaten there. Have you? Oh my goodness. You should not be in this room, you should be outside. The average price per meal is about $450 US per person. The guys, some of the dishes are prepared over a span of 2 to 3 weeks before it arrives at your table. The chef, from everybody from the chef to every single person in the restaurant is immaculate in terms of how well they are trained, how they serve you, how they pay attention to give you the best possible experience. But it is not that what got them the award of the world's best restaurant in 2017. It is not all of these things. It is something else that they did. So what happened was, Bill Guidara, who was one of the founders, because CEOs and great leaders, what they do is they never forget where they came from. They are always on the ground. So he was actually waiting tables that day. He was waiting tables. This is a big fancy restaurant. These are about 500-seater restaurant, which $450 per person per day. This is a multi-million-dollar restaurant. But the CEO, he serves tables. What does he do? He's serving the table and he chances upon, as he's clearing the table, he chances upon a conversation that 4 people are having on that table. So there were 4 friends who had traveled from Europe to come, and they were doing a food tour of all of United States. And one of the 4 remarked to the other, what a fabulous tour we have had. And we are ending at 11 Madison Square. What better can we ask? What a privilege. At that point, somebody next to him remarked, hey, you know what, we did everything, but we didn't have the New York hot dog. So the New York hot dog, we did everything fancy, but we missed having something so simple. Now, Bill Guidara heard this. What did he do? He quietly cleared the table. Then he rushed out of the hotel. He ran to the nearest hot dog. He bought the $2 hot dog. And then he bought it to his kitchen. Now his chef, this is the top 10 restaurants of the world. He gave the $2 hot dog to his co-founder and chef, say, can you please plate it for me? What do you think the chef told him? Go to hell. Right? I'm not going to ruin my restaurant where the waiter wears a $500 jacket and he's going to serve a $2 hot dog, I'm not going to help you to do that. He says, trust me, make it happen. So very nicely take the $2 hot dog, cuts it into 4 pieces, and then lays a little bit of garnish, make it look nice, and Will Guidara goes and serves it. Can you imagine what happened to the guests? They started crying in emotion. They could not believe something like this can happen. That day, the restaurant found the magic sauce. We can create magical experiences. So now they did it once. Now Will Guidara started doing this every week, hanging around, trying to listen, trying to do these magical experiences. But can you do that at scale? How long can one person do it? So he said, I got to create a team. Then he created a team called the Magical Experience Team. And that team was fully empowered. So 10% of the company's revenue is now allocated to create magical experiences. A family from Asia was in New York during winter, and it so happened that the children were looking out, they were fascinated with the snow. They immediately arranged a limousine ride to take them across and play and enjoy the snow. They started creating all these magical experiences one after another, and guess who were the biggest beneficiaries? The biggest beneficiaries were not Madison Square, but the employees. They felt so passionate. They were passionate because they were going after a bigger purpose. They were creating joyful moments. It didn't cost. It cost only $2 hot dog to create that magical experience. Every company can create these magical experiences. So how do we create these magical experiences at scale? Because that will be the key determinant of the experience economy. Now, there are many other great companies as well. I'm sure many women in this room recognize Gentle Monster. How many of you know Gentle Monster? Yeah, Andrew knows it. A friend here knows it. Gentle Monster is one of the fastest growing eyewear brands in the world. Originated out of South Korea. Now what does Gentle Monster means? The name Gentle means we are very, very gentle. We are nice. We want to be seen as a very nice brand. Monster is we want to bring the attitude in you. And that's the kind of sunglasses they make. They sell it on average at about $250 to $400 US. Great eyewears. Now, how are they participating in the experience economy? So if you get a chance, you should go to the Gentle Monster showrooms. If you see, these are all pictures of the Gentle Monster showrooms. They are almost like a museum. You barely can find the sunglasses. You have to really go and search to find the sunglasses that you can buy them. But the showrooms are like a museum because they want to show their creativity. And guess what? The storeroom every showroom's layout is changed every 21 days. Every 21 days. It is his desire to do it in 7 days. He is unable to do it, so he's currently 21 days. And through that brand philosophy, they are able to innovate. How do I drive the future thinking? So this is what companies of tomorrow, leaders of tomorrow are trying to do to create great experiences that you can drive. So we looked at the customer, right? Now we got to bring it back to the company. It's all great. I know where the customer is going. This is what the customer of tomorrow is demanding and willing to pay a premium. Otherwise, we'll have to sell hot dogs. Right? The $2 hot dog is charged at $450 in Will Guidara's 11 Madison Park because of that experience. But how do we create an organization that can deliver that experience? How can we participate and win that? So that's where, what it will take to win the future of work. So as I was preparing, I also put a small question on LinkedIn. I put a question and says, okay, because if you have to deliver those experiences at scale, then you need extremely passionate and connected employees, right? So I asked, hey, what is the one activity that will make you extremely happy and will bring out the best in you? Because if I cannot bring out that best in you, I will not be able to deliver those experiences at scale. So work on a project of passion, or watch a basketball game if I am in Philippines, or go to work like people in this room, I don't know if you like, or meeting with friends. What would you choose? Yeah. 62% of people said project of passion. So can we connect that bigger purpose to everybody's purpose at work? And if we can connect, then magical experiences will happen. So then we said, okay, so to make this happen, we got to address this philosophy for each and every one of us, The first is, why am I doing it? Can we find that bigger purpose and connect that purpose to every single person in the company? Because, we all have mission statements, but go and ask 90% of employees, they will not know what the mission statement of the company is. Second is, each one of us intrinsically, we all want to grow. We all want to be better. Can we support them to do that? Third, it also matters who I do it with, the community of people that I work with. That is important to me. And fourth, enable me to do it really well. So I translated these 4 questions we created this experience framework. He said, hey, this is the ideal employee experience framework that will help us deliver that experience. So what we started at the fundamental layer, we said, hey, there is a platform, there is a structure. These are essential, basic building blocks that is required to do it well, right? Which is, I need the technology, I need the flexibility, I need the environment. By technology means, in today's day and age, if you give the guy a bullock cart, then he will only go that fast. You got to give him what he needs so that he can do his job really well. Else we will lose this battle. You got to give him access to tools like ChatGPT so that he can do his job really well. Second, employees of today want incredible flexibility. They want to be empowered. And third, you got to give them that environment so that they can do it well. Then the second part is the engagement. The engagement is, am I creating the right environment for these individuals to collaborate? Am I running the right rituals? Am I running the right set of programs through which these employees will see that shared experiences? Can I build the set of traditions? When I think of traditions, I see traditions like Apple, as a company. They have a tradition that every September they launch a new phone. What a great tradition. It's almost like celebrating Christmas every year. Right? But celebrating it with the employees and the customer. What a great ritual. What a great ritual to bring the whole ecosystem together. What are the rituals that you are driving in your company? The next one is empowerment, and I'll come back to the empowerment and purpose moving on, right? So purpose is because most people today are requiring their companies to serve a bigger purpose. So that was the organization layer. Let's finally come to the personal layer. That is you and me, right? I think I want to make it a point that we all need to make personal growth a personal priority. We all get so sucked up in our day-to-day work. Today it is said that the average job lifespan is about 5 years. That means if you are working more than 5 years in that job, there is a 90% probability your salary is not going to keep pace with the inflation. Because that's how quickly the job definitions are changing. That's how quickly the company's need for you is changing. So the first one is, we got to bring our own motivation to work. We cannot expect it to be the company's motivation all the time. If we don't bring our own motivation. I went to my daughter's graduation day about 6 months ago. And the principal there gave a fabulous speech. And he gave the speech about 3 bricklayers. I don't know if you have heard this. He said, there were 3 people who were laying bricks, and he walked up and he asked the first person, "What are you doing?" He said, "Hey, can't you see I'm laying bricks? I'm building a wall." He asked the second person, "Hey, what are you doing?" "Hey, I'm building a wall. It's going to be a fabulous building here. It's going to be a school. So I'm very fascinated and I'm helping build a school." The same guy asked the third bricklayer, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm building the future of my nation." So you got to find your own purpose in this grand scheme of things. We cannot expect companies to look for it all the time. The second one is we have to constantly be shaping our next job. The dependency on requiring our companies to shape and give us that promotion, that era is over. We are in an era where the market environment is changing so quickly. New technology is disrupting businesses so quickly that companies don't have a choice. We saw that firsthand. 6 months ago, companies were very worried about the great resignation. Facebook hired 92,000 employees between 2021 and 2022. Within 6 months, November 2022, Facebook has announced one of the first and biggest layoffs in its entire history. Right? Companies will be forced to take those tough decisions for the matter of their own survival. So it is up to us to shape up our own next job, internal or external. That means we need to be learning in the flow of our work, not waiting for that once a year training that you're going to go to and get better at it. We got to skill across, because what companies need is multitude of competencies. Why is a startup like Gcash better than Globe Telecom? Okay? Why are they better? Because when you start a startup, everybody does everything. We are multi-skilled. When you get to a bigger company, we start creating silos. We don't participate. If we do not have a multitude of skills and cannot work across multiple teams, we will become irrelevant as well. The third one, I say, is you've got to apply the digital litmus test. What is a digital litmus test? At the end of every year, we go to our bosses and say, "Give me an increment. I'm looking for an increment which is better than inflation." And that's a common requisite that most of you have. Most of us have. If inflation is 5%, I'm hoping you'll give me 8%. And I get 8% over a career spanning 20 years, I'll make a reasonable amount of money. But with automation, with things like ChatGPT that you just saw, companies are going to not require you anymore. So it means we need to ask ourselves, is my impact on the company following the linear curve, the blue line, or is my impact on the company an exponential curve? Am I able to use digital technology better so that the company gets more out of me, not just the incremental improvement that I'm getting year after year or giving year after year? We need to start checking our digital intensity. As companies, you check your digital intensity, say, how much of tech force do I have? Am I hiring enough tech talent? Am I hiring enough leaders who understand technology? Is my CFO technologically able? Is my chief HR officer using technology enough? Because if he's not using technology enough, then he's obviously facing obsolescence. So you ask, what is your personal digital intensity score? Rank yourself. Are you good? How good are you? And the final point is, we all need to work loud. And I thought this was I picked it up from this research that was done by John Stepper. He says, what is it needed to succeed in today's digital world? Because in today's digital world, attention span is so limited. People are distributed, work across so many different locations. People usually don't even know what you do. You don't show up to work, people don't even know many times you are there or you're not there. You can be made redundant among the many new jobs that are getting redundant every single day. So he says that you've got to apply these 5 principles and 5 levels to be able to succeed in the future of work. He says, you've got to share what you're doing. You've got to shout a lot about what you're doing. You've got to give more than receive. If you do something good, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with the rest so that they know there is something exciting, they can use it, they can build something even better. Form and curate great relationships within the company across multitude of levels. Be an activist. One of the things I thought was fairly exciting was do a side job, he said. Do a side sling, where you pick up a project of passion, and that passion you will bring it back to work and able to do something extraordinary. So I hope I have shared with you some insights to stimulate you to say, hey, what is that future of work? How can we be better, customer, company, and ourselves? I want to end. So what I also did was, I asked ChatGPT a very simple question, and I asked them only this morning. I said, hey, you know what? Twimbit is a research company. The name Twimbit is an acronym for the world is moved by ideas and technology. Can you write a 6-line poem on Twimbit? In less than 30 seconds, it gave me the poem. And it resonated so well with me. I may have to have paid somebody $100,000 to compose a poem, something like this. Okay? And it is free. So that is the future of work. So I hope we can all be inspired and look at how we can make it, and build, I think as Scott Friedman and Jonathan Stanfield says, together we can make a better world. Thank you.